Morning, Kelly. I know over the weekend you sent me an email, some stuff you wanted to possibly talk about this week. I'm a little confused. We're talking about Amy's hijacking,
Uh,
Amy's the gala hijacking.
yeah,
So I'm just kind of leaving it at that.
you're getting close. Yeah, but you're not there yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the way you pronounce it is the amygdala.
Oh my gosh.
Amygdala.
Okay, tell me about the amygdala.
Well, I mean, there's a term that I think is what we're experiencing a lot in today's society, and it's funny. I really, reading it, it's like, why don't we talk about this more? But anyway, neuroscientists have said that this is the first time in human history where more information is coming in than the human brain can process. And this is wreaking havoc on our neurological alarm system that is hypersensitive to fear. Okay, the alarm system that I'm speaking of, it's called the amygdala. Okay, and this is an area of the brain that always is looking for danger. I mean, it's on the look. I mean, it makes us very anxious. We're making sure we need to be protective of ourselves. The amygdala filters the senses that first come into our brain. And when I'm talking about the senses, I'm talking about maybe what we see, what we smell, hear, taste, or touch. If danger is perceived, let's just say that we hear a loud noise, then the flow of information stops at the lower midbrain area so that we can react immediately without much thought. Okay, and that's very, very important. A good example is if you were to step on a water hose in your yard and you're barefoot. Maybe you've done this before. But if you think about it, what the first initial response is you just jump. Now, you don't think, oh, I need to jump because it might be a snake. You just jump. Okay, it's part of the autonomic system. So, in this system, what it's called the fight or flight mechanism. They also have added another one, which is called freeze, because sometimes we just freeze, we don't do anything. So
So
that's what the amygdala is. Sorry.
okay. Why don't we have this feature in our brain?
Well, that's a good question. We have to do a like a reductionist look at why we do what we do. And when I mean reductionist, I mean we need to go back and look at where these things manifest from. So in ancient times, it was a true advantage for our species survival to act quickly and be as reactive as possible to what we perceive to be a real threat or danger. And trust me, because in ancient times, there were true threats behind every tree and in every cave. Those ancestors that we have, that we come from, that overreacted, they increased their probability of their genes making it into the next generation. This is a great system to have if you live on the savannas. But however, having an overactive alarm system in modernity is playing a major role that we see today in the areas of stress, anxiety, and cognitive distortions.
How would you say this is affecting us in our modern times?
Well, an example might let's just say that we hear a comment, somebody says something about us, or a song, and it might take us back to a negative experience. You might call that, it's an amygdala trigger. It triggers a response, and if this response is deemed threatening, then memories are formed associating the sound with unpleasantness. So if the noise startles us, the autonomic fight or flight system responds. As I've mentioned before, this is really good to have in dangerous situations. But in modern times, the brain can perceive irrational threats with the same intensity as real threats. So it's like it's a loud noise, but it was just a car door shutting. And what we might do is we might overreact and run. And so what happens is the past event, like if we've experienced some trauma with a loud noise, then that noise we hear today, it's just as real as when it first occurred. If it triggered something in our amygdala, the amygdala makes a note, a mental note, or a subconscious note that there's danger. So this overactive alarm system is known as the amygdala hijacking. It's characterized by when an emotional response is immediate, it's overwhelming, and it's out of measure with whatever just occurred. When our amygdala is hijacked, when it's triggered, we suffer emotionally. And I can tell you a few things we do. One thing is our attention becomes preoccupied on the perceived threat. So we forget everything around us. We're just preoccupied on that thing. Our attention, it narrows and it becomes fixated on that particular thing. The focus becomes completely about the self. We would rather be safe than sorry. Number one, the species has got to take care of itself to survive. Another thing that's really, really causing the problem is that when the amygdala is activated, it minimizes the access we have to our prefrontal cortex, basically the frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe is responsible for using logic and reason. Let's just say that I think we've all received a text or an email and we got upset about it and we immediately responded with something, we sent it. And there's an immediate sense of guilt because we overreacted. Okay, that's the amygdala in action. And that occurs a lot. So what we've got to do in modern times is that we need to learn how to calm our amygdala before we can modify our behavior. Because right now we're acting emotionally. I mean, you can see that a lot in politics, trying to have a political discussion. So if we're going to modify our behavior, we've got to first learn how to calm that. And we must recognize and have the tools available so that we can disengage that fight or flight mechanism so that we can clarify and evaluate our situation better.
So you just mentioned tools. Like, what kind of tools can we use in the situation?
Well, there's many, but I'll give you one example. One method that works really well in this situation is called the STOP method. Okay, and STOP is an acronym. Basically, when I'm feeling triggered, if I'm by myself, I might say it out loud. If I'm in a crowd, I probably won't say it out loud because people will think I'm crazy. But so the acronym is STOP, and so number one, S, stop. Take 3 deep breaths. Observe the behavior. Proceed with kindness. Okay, so people will go, well, what's the big deal with that, or how does that work? This sounds kind of hokey. Well, this is something that they use in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that works really, really well. So stop is a speed bump. Okay, it allows that amygdala to go into a higher level of intensity. So if I can distract by when I'm feeling my emotions, they just happen at the subconscious level. But to say stop, you have to go up to the prefrontal cortex. Okay, so we're getting out of this amygdala. We're moving up to our higher level, which is called the human brain up top. That's what separates us from all other animals, is our ability to use logic and reason. What it does, the stop method allows the sensory information to flow up to the upper hemispheres of our brain, where we can act more rationally. And it allows us to clarify and evaluate the current beliefs that we have and kind of correct the automatic negative thoughts with neutral words like stop that disengage our stress and anxiety. If you're someone who lives in the past, then you suffer from depression primarily. But if you're future focused, or if you're worried on little things, then you suffer a lot from anxiety. So those are 2 different types of things. So stop is a very important word. But if you're suffering from anxiety, I can tell you a really, really good word. And this is another tool. So we have a stop. The stop method is a tool. Another good word, perhaps. Say I was trying to interview for a new job, and I go, I'm never going to get the job if I'm thinking that. All you got to do is say, perhaps, because we don't know. If you say, I'm never going to get the job, then you continue that narrative with, I just didn't perform well. I could have dressed better. I don't know if I should have got my hair cut. So perhaps allows you to just stop that internal dialogue right away. You may meet someone, if you're a guy, you may see a girl and talk to her and think, oh my gosh, she's never going to talk to me again. Well, then again, you say, perhaps. And that perhaps is another speed bump, which prevents us from going into this long narrative of negative thinking.
One thing that I constantly do is I constantly beat myself up, whether it's a mistake I made or it's my own self-thoughts of my self-criticism. I'm constantly beating myself up. So how does that play in?
You're going up above the amygdala with negative thinking, negative thoughts, because the amygdala doesn't think, it just reacts. So if you hear a loud noise and you jump real quick, that's your amygdala response. Like I said, if you step on a water hose and you jump, that's the amygdala response. Now, when it comes to like negative thinking or beating yourself up, would you say you're a perfectionist?
No, I just think I've just had so many mistakes, or maybe I'm trying to seek my own approval, that in my own validation, that I'm hard on myself. Or I
Do you
guess
think you're needing that validation through other people?
possibly.
Yeah, because I mean, you just do the right thing. If you mess up, I mean, on my mistakes, I look at them as a good thing. Because I mean, I know that as we're talking right now, I've fumbled over a few words I wanted to say. That just next time I know I'll be better equipped when I'm asked the question. So a mistake is just it's a stepping stone for me to along my way to get better and better. We're gonna make mistakes. I mean, you're always gonna make a mistake. Even the best speakers make mistakes. The difference between the best speakers and the bad speakers is that the best speakers, they recognize that they could have explain something a little bit better. Whereas the bad speakers keep thinking inside that, oh no, I'm going to do that again. They're probably not going to understand me. They're going to think that's stupid. So just, what a word that I use on negative thoughts, like the next time you start going, God, I can't believe I did that. Then the word you use is interesting. It's a neutral word. It doesn't make me feel good or bad. It's interesting. Why I'm talking to myself this way again. That's okay. Now I'm going to learn from that mistake so that I don't do it again. I'm going to get better at it. If we don't fail, we don't learn. I mean, failure, I think, is one of those things that we look at as a bad thing. And I just don't look at that as a bad thing at all. I mean, with my experience in the gym, and I know your experience too, what is the goal in the gym? When you're going through a set, what is the goal?
Failure.
Failure, yeah. Because if I fail, then I succeed because I get stronger, I get better. Okay. But you don't go around all day long going, God, if I could have just got 12 reps. I got 11, but if I could have got that 12th rep, things would have been so much different. I'm just worthless. I'm never going to reach my goal. I mean, you may do that, but you realize that I gave it all I got. I failed. I didn't get 12, but but being that I failed, I know that what's going to happen because of that is that I'm going to get stronger. And if I eat good, potentially my muscles are going to be a little bit larger and I'm going to lose fat. So those are all good things. We got to stop looking at failure as something that's so bad and devastating. Failure just is a great way of self-correction is what I use it for.
That's really good. And I know one of the things that I try to do in my comedy, and I need to apply it to other areas of life, because it's tying in right now, is like whenever I teach improv, I tell my students, okay, I have two rules. I want you guys to have fun. And number two, I want you to give yourself the permission to fail. Because when I bomb on stage, I've learned to love that awkward feeling, because I automatically recognize that didn't work. Don't do it again.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's how the show goes on. And so,
Right. Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, we all, look at the one thing that you succeed at, whatever it is you're good at, and I promise you, whatever method that you apply to that particular subject, it'll work in every area of your life. I mean, in the gym, I gave everything I had. I was very organized. I was scheduled. I mean, I knew what body parts I was working, and then that's carried over into other areas of my life. I mean, my eating, my day at work. I know I have a schedule on all the clients that I'm going to train. I know when my mid-morning snack comes in. I know when my lunch comes in. I know when my workout comes in. I mean, it's just being organized. So whatever tools that you use in comedy, you just got to carry those over into other areas. And when you do that, you've already got a blueprint there for success. So there's no way it won't work. So just apply the same principles.
so
The problem is our thoughts. We just keep thinking and thinking, and I just can't believe it. And so we've got to have something in there, perhaps, or interesting. The worst thing you can do is, God, I'm so stupid. You don't want to beat yourself up.
mm-hmm.
That just makes it, you kind of predict that this is going to happen again by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You're almost in making that happen again because you just keep thinking about it and you beat yourself up. You don't beat yourself up in comedy, right?
Right.
So laugh about it. There's something interesting. If you'll ever watch Buddhist monks interviewed, and they will ask them a question about something like, what would you say about envy? And it almost 100% they kind of laugh. And the reason why they laugh is because they were all guilty of that at some point in their life. And they realize that it's still there a little bit, but it's kind of a vestige of the past. It's not something that has the strength that it used to have, because we giggle about it. We laugh about it. Oh, there I go again. You take the you undercut the stress and anxiety by laughing about it. Replace that first initial word or thought with something that's neutral, perhaps, or interesting. Those are the best ways. It's the best way to break that chain of thinking.
I
So
like.
anyway, just realize that it's all these words that we need one word that you may remember that makes you happy, that you find funny. It may be that one skit that just blew everybody away. You may think of that. It could have been a yellow Volkswagen. I don't know. I'm just making up something. But what these are, again, they're cognitive speed bumps that allow the amygdala to calm down and allow for better processing. You know, One of the things, let me see if I can get this straight the way I usually say it. But okay, so they say that we're human beings that are fighting with our emotions. Okay, I believe we are emotional beings fighting to become fully human, because the first thing that happens, the first information that's processed, is in the emotional area of our brain, basically going through the brainstem to the limbic system. Okay, within the limbic system, you have the amygdala, the hippocampus, the nucleus accumbens, all these different areas that all deal with emotion. So we go brainstem, limbic system, and then cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is what makes us human. So you can see that all of this sensory input that comes in is having to traverse all of these emotional areas of our brain before it gets to the human part. So it's not that we're humans fighting with our emotions. We're emotional beings fighting to become fully human. If we can get up there to the top, to that cerebral cortex, then we will always be able to use logic and reason.
Mm.
And that's what makes us human.